Hello, everyone. And on behalf of the faculty and everyone else here at OSU-Newark, let me just offer you my most enthusiastic welcome to Buckeye Nation. Now, believe me, this isn't the way I wanted to do it. In fact, I desperately wish that we were all on campus right now so I could welcome you in person. In fact, frankly, I wish I could be anywhere to welcome anyone in person. Right now, if I was offered a chance to come meet a group of new students, but was told I'd have to travel to North Korea to do it, I'd start packing my bags pretty much immediately. Unfortunately, current circumstances of our lives have me pretty much confined to my living room, but that it hasn't crushed my enthusiasm for the next academic year, and I hope it hasn't crushed yours either. Now, I mentioned that I'm in my living room, but you can see in my background around me that I'm also somewhere else. Pictured behind me are the Cliffs of Moher in County Clare, Ireland. It's one of my favorite places in the world, and I've been there a lot because roughly 15 years ago, I was the Mary Ball Washington Distinguished Fulbright Professor of American History at University College Dublin in Ireland. The Mary Ball Washington Chair in Dublin is awarded to just one American professor every year, and it's one of the most prestigious positions in my profession. And I tell you this not to brag, but so that you understand that OSU-Newark isn't just a place to come and kill time for a year or two before moving on to your next destination. It's a place where you can work with some top people in your desired field and get involved with some exciting research and take some really important steps towards whatever destination you want to reach in the end. So we have, for example, an astronomy professor who works with NASA's Space Flight Center and is the founding director of the Sci-Dome Planetarium at the Works right down the road in Newark. We have a geology professor who travels to India to study the impact of climate change on local communities. We've got an education professor who's one of, I think, only 6 professors in the country who's credentialed to train teachers on how to implement dyslexia intervention for whole classroom teaching. And we have a math professor who's part of a small group of scholars across the country who are developing a new form of algebra that crosses into infinite dimensions. And yes, I have absolutely no idea what that actually means, but apparently it's kind of a big deal. So I would just urge you to think of your time here as more than just a basic first step. It's more than a simple introduction to the next phase of your lives. And instead to really embrace it as the great opportunity that it is. And what you end up doing here obviously is up to you. But I hope that you'll take advantage of the opportunities that you have. And I promise you that the faculty here will be enthusiastic about being part of that process in helping you along. You know, when the dean asked me to give this brief welcome talk about a month ago, I started thinking about a time roughly 20 years ago, not long after I had come to the Newark campus, when I gave another talk on behalf of the faculty at a similar event on campus. This was the annual end of the year event that we always host for students who had won some sort of special recognition or an award for some specific academic accomplishment from the previous year. It's an event, by the way, that I expect we will still have when life goes back to normal, and I fully expect to see many of you invited to attend in the next few years. Anyway, just for fun, I went back just a couple days ago to see if I still had a copy of my notes from that talk, and I was shocked to find out that I still had them. And I was even more shocked to see, as I read through them, how much the world had changed since then. You see, that night, almost 20 years ago, I had basically urged the students to recognize that their generation was inheriting a world without any really serious challenges or difficulties. I'm a historian. So that means not only am I long-winded and boring, but that I like to put everything in this grand sweeping scope of history. And so in that earlier speech from almost 20 years ago, I talked about how the students, their great-great-grandparents had turned this country into an industrial powerhouse. And then how their great-grandparents had fought to shape and reorganize that emerging political and economic system so that it worked more efficiently and it worked more fairly for everyone. And then how their grandparents had probably survived the Great Depression and helped win World War II. And how their parents had probably fought for civil rights or women's rights or some other capacity to expand the notion of equality. And they helped to win the Cold War. And now here they were, this group of students 20 years ago, and I told them they're inheriting a world of stability and prosperity with the United States as the unchallenged leader, a world that just offered incredible promise and incredible opportunity to our students. And now as I look around the world today, I can say that, yeah, I got that one wrong. And that's no surprise. We historians are notably bad at predicting the future. I pretty much predict that the Browns are going to make the playoffs every year, and you can see how well I've done on that one. But the idea that I delivered to the students 15, 18 years ago at that ceremony, that the US had somehow reached its apex, that we had almost perfected the system, and that the future was bright, it was so full of reasons for optimism and good cheer, that one pretty much missed the mark just as badly. Your generation will not be graduating into a nation of rainbows and unicorns and puppy dogs and Cleveland Browns playoff victories. Instead, it'll probably inherit a nation with some pretty serious economic problems, serious internal political divisions, potentially devastating environmental and global health challenges, and serious international threats throughout the world. The times have changed, but the larger points that I made to those students that evening almost 2 decades ago still stand, I think. I told the students that night that the future belonged to them, but that they needed to take ownership of it, that they needed to make it happen. I told them that it didn't matter what they did specifically, as long as they did it to the absolute best of their ability and with an eye towards contributing to the society around them in whatever fashion worked best for them. And most importantly, I told them that the nation needed a new generation to inspire and to lead, and where necessary, to implement change. And I would say the same thing to you tonight. And I would hope that your stay here at OSU-Newark launches you in that direction to inspire and to lead and even to change when necessary. Now, you can go in any direction you want. And OSU-Newark presents all sorts of avenues. You can aspire to work for NASA, or to study climate change in India, or to teach students with disabilities, or work on multi-dimensional algebra that no one really understands, or you can even be a boring and long-winded historian of modern America, or you can do something else entirely. But on behalf of all of my faculty colleagues here at the Newark campus, I hope that you will let us be part of that process of helping you to get there. Thanks for listening to me. Thanks for choosing us as your next destination. And welcome to Buckeye Nation.